Class, I want to go through the annotated bibliography. This is the paper that you will have to do for this class. And I'm hoping that I can move through different screens out of the PowerPoint to show you how to use certain databases that I like. So first, we're going to be using APA format. So if you want to know everything there is to know about APA citations, you can go to a site like you see here. But really, the important thing is that you just get the citation right. And so I'm going to show you through a few strategies on how you can do that. Okay. So I'm asking you all to find journals, academic journals, right? So you can see that I have books here. It doesn't mean that books can't be or are not very good sources, credible sources. I want you to focus on academic scholarly journals for this assignment. So I would expect it to look something like this or something like this. And why you see website here is because I would imagine that most of you are not going to a library and finding an actual journal that's in print, reading it, and then citing it, which is what this looks like. Instead, you're probably finding it online, and therefore it's going to look very similar to this journal here, except the only difference is that you'll have a retrieval statement. Now, so when I was going through school, the APA format had a date, and I always liked that because, especially as an instructor, because then I was able to see, well, when were students accessing it? Because as you probably know, a lot of things on the internet, they'll change web addresses and all kinds of things, and then you can't find it. And so I like to be able to see the date. However, the APA has changed, and they don't use the date anymore. But I'm okay with you using it if you feel okay with putting a date on there. If not, you just say retrieved from, and then you have the URL. Okay. I'll show you really quickly if I can open up a new Microsoft Word document. I will show you how you can go through Microsoft Word. So if you just go into a blank document and you want to insert your citation, you can actually go to insert citation. You can see that it's already here on it's already defaulted to APA. So you hit insert citation, add new source, and then it's just going to ask you to fill out this information. Okay, and then you would hit OK, and then it would come up. It will pop up in your document here. Okay. There's other sites you could use, EasyBib, NightCite, same thing. They ask you for information, you put in the information, it creates a citation. NightCite was one that I used when I was in college, but things have gotten a little bit easier. So let me go ahead and share with you some newer and easier ways to do this. So first, let me walk you through Google Scholar because I think it's a really excellent resource. So if you're in Google, just search the term Scholar. Okay, first thing that comes up is Google Scholar. Now you know you're in Google Scholar as opposed to Google because it says Google Scholar. Now let's say that we want to research like education inequality. Okay, so it has come up with there are books, and you can see it says book if it's a book. Again, it's saying that this is a scholarly source, and it may be, but I want you to focus on journals, right? So you see journal, journals. Okay. Now, what happens is that I find is that students often will go into an article, read the abstract, be like, wow, this is perfect. When they go to the PDF, it says get access, and it's going to charge you $42 or $16 or $7, right? It's crazy, right? To pay that kind of money. So there's a little trick. Go back. So if you go over here and you click it, you see off to the side here. Now, not all of them have that, right? But if you click that, it's going to bring you to the actual paper. It should. Go back out. Let's go to all 14 versions. Try this one. There it is. There it is. There's the free one. Okay, so what did I just do? All right, so let's go back. Now, if there's a free version, it's indicated by this out to the right link. Okay. Now, what happened when I clicked this link is I'm not really sure. It took me to something strange, and maybe if I messed around with it, I could find it for free. I'm not quite sure what it has me in. But maybe this is the link to the PDF. Ah, there it is. Okay. So it was available on this link right here. You just had to mess around with it. But all 14 versions, let me explain what this is. So this is the same article. So it's not different versions of the article. It's the same article housed in different databases. And so if you click on that, you can see it's all the same article. Some are going to charge you money if you go in, but there are three versions that are offering it for free. Okay. So if it doesn't have it off to the right, you can always go through our interlibrary loans to get it free. But realize that just by clicking the link, it may not be taking you to the free one. That you need to go off and click to the right hand side here. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about APA. All right. So I said there's an easier way to get the citation, right? So we like this article. We go to the little quotation. Wow, it's right there. APA. Copy and paste it. Done. Piece of cake, right? Okay. It saves you the trouble of entering all that information. It's right there. It's perfect. Put it right in there. Okay. Now, you like this article. Okay. What some people would do is they would go to the bibliography. So let's go into one of these free versions again. Okay. You see all these sources, right? These are all sources that are related to this article because they've been cited by this article, but they're all older. Okay. What Google Scholar allows you to do is when you go to the cited by button, it allows you to look at all of the more recent articles that have cited that article, which is a really nice resource. And then, of course, it has related articles, which is going to use similar search terms. Okay. The library databases that we have on campus or that we have, sorry, not on campus, but we have through our online technology are really great, and some of you are already familiar with them. I really like Google Scholar, but there are some benefits to using the library databases. Um, you might be able to, if you have a Google account, do things like bookmark and make notations and things like that, like you can with the library databases. That process is not super important that you know that, but snowballing is what we call when you find one article, you looking at the citations to find more articles. That's what we call snowballing. Okay, so now you know how to find articles and you know how to cite them properly. It's just general, like, so if you're in Google Scholar, don't worry about this stuff, okay? If you were just in general Google, that's when you need to be more discerning about where it's coming from. And that's why I don't really want you to use a general Google search for this. I want you to either use the library databases or to use Google Scholar. All right. What makes an article scholarly? The peer review process, okay? So what happens is someone um, would write a manuscript that would take a long time, often, and then they would send this to a journal, and there would be experts in that particular area that would review this. They would then respond back to the author, and there would likely be a back and forth process, making revisions, making sure it's absolutely perfect before it gets published. So that process is very different than, let's say, a newspaper, where an editor might review something, but they may not be an expert. Like the editor might not be an expert in, like, let's say, medicine or health, yet they're reviewing this article that's written by someone who also may not be an expert in medicine or health. And yet here we are reading this in a newspaper, this article about health and medicine, right? And it's not that it's going to be, it may not be bad, right? But it didn't go through that same rigorous process, okay? And that's what really distinguishes um, peer-reviewed articles, scholarly articles, from those that are not. All right, so now your paper will kind of look like this, except you'll have, so we have one, two, okay, you'll have six, okay? So we have here these are just taken from my dissertation. I actually, when I was working on my dissertation, I started by coming up with a annotated bibliography myself, and this was a way of organizing um, my resources. Okay, so you have your citation. They're going to be organized in alphabetical order. Now, you see this 1958, 1991. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so old. And that's often a question that comes up. How old is too old? Well, I think you need to be just mindful, right? If you're using statistics, you say like the current obesity rate is what, 40% or whatever, and then you're citing something from 1981. Well, obviously that's not recent, right? Um, but if it's a theory, which is what this Jehoda article is about, sometimes theories can be timeless, right? So there's really no time. There's no like year that I would say like this is, it's got to be before or after this year. I just think you need to be mindful about how you about those dates and how you're putting it in perspective. Okay. So the annotation comes beneath the citation. Okay, and if you need to quote something, and normally you would, if you were quoting in a paper, you have the author's name and year and the page number. But since I already know that it's coming from here, from this article, all you need is the page number. Okay. Now this doesn't necessarily have to do with this paper, but I think is really important. And this is actually the reason that I moved into an annotated bibliography instead of just like a typical paper. And that's student. There was a lot of plagiarism that was going on, unintentional in many cases. And that what was happening was students were using the author's information but not citing them. And so it's very important that you cite your sources. And in fact, as you'll see in some classes, especially as you move on into upper level courses in grad school, if you decide to do that, the more citations, the better. Um, you know, I don't even know exactly. I would say in my dissertation, I probably had like 300 citations or something like that, right? you just want, I mean, and I even had a grad school, and when I was in grad school, I had a teacher who said the first thing that she did when she got a paper was she turned to the back. How many citations are here? You got a 3-page paper and you have 20 citations, you're off to a good start. You have a 10-page paper and you have 2 citations, I don't know. Okay? Paraphrasing is when you are not necessarily directly taking word for word the author's words, but instead you are putting it in your own words. Even when you do that, you still need to provide a citation. Okay? So, you have 3 topics to choose from in your annotated bib. Okay? And you'll pick only one topic from the list, and then you'll find 6 articles. Okay? Let's go through the topics. I actually think that they are in order from probably easiest to find information to hardest, but also in order from perhaps the least interesting to maybe the most interesting, in my opinion. Okay? Um, so, are obesity rates higher in urban areas compared to suburban areas? Why or why not? These are search terms that I used, so I know that there are articles out there. Okay? Now, different ways to think about this, and how you might kind of shape your annotated bib. You might think, well, what are the differences? So you might have one article talking about suburban obesity. You might find another article talking about urban obesity, and you might find differences. Like one article might be talking about food deserts, another article might be talking about schools, and so on, right? What are there other reasons, right? Is there an income disparity typically we see in obesity or in urban areas versus suburban areas, right? So there's a lot of different directions that you could take to find sources. Okay. Next topic, how is cyberbullying different from traditional bullying? So as I shaped this question, what was interesting when I was doing the research was um, it's just called bullying, right? Or face-to-face bullying. So it may not be, when we think about traditional bullying, your research might not come up by using that search term. Also, I noticed that some researchers use the term electronic bullying for cyberbullying. And again, the search terms are important in terms of what's going to come up in your Google search. And how are you going to shape this paper? So, what's the difference between the two? Like, you could have one article just explaining this is what face-to-face bullying is. This is what electronic or cyberbullying is. Are the consequences worse? You might find articles that say, well, face-to-face bullying is more harmful or cyberbullying is more harmful. In what ways are they more harmful? Okay. The last topic you can choose is, are school shootings happening more frequently than in the past? To what extent and why? And again, these are some search terms that I used. I did find that the searches tend to bring up a lot of case studies. So maybe which is not really what you're looking for. That's why I said it might be more difficult to find articles for this topic. And so what I found was I'd put in these search terms, and then one particular incident would come up. Like um, Columbine, right? And it would be an analysis of what happened at Columbine, looking at the shooters, what happened there. That's really not as fine for another paper, but probably not what you're looking for here. So you may have to dig in a little deeper, okay? But I was able to find some stuff. Again, what are the different ways you can shape this? Well, what are the numbers? What are the differences? How have they changed? Or have they? Are there any theories about the increase or decrease in these school shootings? Are they related to something like bullying or some other kind of social influence? And obviously, we know that social media is different today than it was, let's say, in 1980. So, is it that the numbers haven't really changed, but our awareness has changed, right? So, all these things can shape different ways that you can put the sources together. Okay. So, when you put your citations together, and the order should be alphabetical by the first author's last name. But you would not reorder the names of the authors within the citation, okay? I'll show you what that means in a minute. And each citation should have a hanging indent, okay? And I'm going to show you what that looks like right here, all right? So you can see how this is in alphabetical order, right? Madron comes before Smith, and then this is what a hanging indentation looks like. And there's an easy way to do this. Give me one sec. See something here. I remember there's a trick. Control T. It's Control T. You highlight it. This has some spacing issues because I brought it over from PowerPoint. But Control T, you highlight it, hit Control T, and that'll give you the hanging indent. Okay. Now, what you wouldn't do. So if this is what the citation looked like, you would not reorder the citation. That's not what I mean by alphabetical order. I mean the citations would be in order, as you see here. Okay. I already talked about how old is too old. And last, I'll talk about the breakdown of grades, how it'll be scored. So each source is worth 1.5 points. You have 6 sources. And the total paper is worth 10 points, so that leaves 1 point for the overall look. So is it in alphabetical order? Do they all have hanging indents? And so on. Okay. Then to break down each source. So what I'm really looking for is your source scholarly or not? Okay, you'll get the majority of points from whether or not your source is scholarly. Is it inside APA format? And then I'll review the summary. The last thing that I want to point out is if you do not, so I had a student who submitted a paper with just citations. There were no summaries, which would actually, if it was scholarly, could score a 7, right? A passing score. And that's in fact what he said to me. And I thought, oh my, I kind of missed the purpose of this. So I won't grade the citation unless there's a summary. You must have a summary included for each citation for the citation to be counted. Okay?